everybody. Hello, Cubby's here. Of course he is. He could tell what was happening, so he assumed the position. Yes, you did. Hopefully he's not blocking. Oh, why you gotta be like that, dude? But yeah, also this window is being very annoying. It's not actually that bright out. I tried to like block it by myself, but then everything kind of becomes very washed out. So it's just gonna be that way for now. I think my time filming over here is limited, probably only through the rest of April and May. And June, I probably have to figure something else out. So hopefully it'll be somewhere without a window like this, because honestly, like the stuff I have in this window is super cute. I wish you guys could see it, but I tend to film during the day and it really gets washed out. Cubby's back. Okay, welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about the books I read in March. I know it's kind of late. It's currently April 11th, but you know what? It's my channel and I want to talk about the books I read in March in the middle of April. So we're just going to do it, all right? So here we go. We're going to talk about March's books. I already talked about what I'm trying to read in April. I'm already so far off of that video I put out last month. I cannot wait, or last week. I cannot wait to talk to you guys about it at the end of April. But today is all about March. Let's just get into it. Let's just get going on it. Let's not ramble for too long. I read 10 books in March. I have 11 to discuss because I did have one DNF. But out of the 10 that I read, I had an average star rating of 4. So it was a really good reading month for me in terms of star ratings. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about these books. They were all fiction, and it says I read about 4,100 pages, but one of those was a DNF, and I don't know if it counted all of its pages, even though I moved it to a DNF. So I don't know how exactly that works. Yeah, 7 of the 11 were romance. So you could kind of tell what mood I was in March. And they were all physical paper books. I don't usually read ebooks a lot. I've especially recently realized what a struggle it is for me to read on an ebook. Like, there's some conveniences to it, but especially if I try to read in public, I really have a hard time reading an ebook. And I don't know if it's the whole, like, my brain is like, this is a screen. We're not supposed to focus on screens in public this much, or what it is. But yeah, next month we can talk about it because I do actually have an ebook on my wrap up for April, as well as an audiobook. Very exciting. I'm attempting to branch out. But for March, I'm going to talk about 11 books. And the first one I actually have here, this is the only like book I own that I read this month, and that was Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This is the 5th book in the Chestnut Springs series. As far as I know, it's the last book in the Chestnut Springs series. This is about Beau and Bailey, and Beau is discharged from the Canadian military. He was like special ops and he got injured in a mission. So he was discharged and now he kind of has to figure out what to do with his life. I can't remember if he wasn't the oldest brother. He might be the youngest brother. I don't know where he falls in the brothers. It's about him, and Bailey is a bartender in Chestnut Springs in that town, and her family is known for being like not a good family. Like, they get into crimes and all kinds of stuff. And so she's trying to get out of town. They decide to fake get engaged. They have a bet like, oh, I bet if you change your name, like people will treat you better or whatever. So she's like, okay, bet. And they decide to try it out. And we all know how fake engagements go. But I rated this 4.5 stars. I really loved Bailey and I loved Beau. I was afraid of this because I'm not a big like military fan in general, so I was nervous about this, but this really does kind of deal with like post-traumatic stress disorder from things that happen to people when they're in the military. It dealt more with that and less about like the hero worship of the military things like you'll see in a lot of especially like American romances that deal with the military. So this was a really interesting take. I liked it a lot. We all know how it's gonna go. This was 4.5 stars. It was a really good start to the month. I've been hoping it was gonna be 5 stars, but there's something in it about him like not having a purpose, and he's like, you're my new purpose, and I'm like, okay, that worked for Rapunzel in Tangled when she was like, you're my new dream. It doesn't work for me in this kind of setting, like a contemporary romance setting. To me, I'm just like, that seems manipulative. You need to find your own purpose. I can't be the reason you are alive. Okay, so I didn't like that, so I docked it 1/2 star. So that was a start to the month. And then I went and read The Fake Mate by Lena Ferguson, and I've heard that this author is somewhat problematic or fairly problematic because either her novels are plagiarizing allegedly some fan fiction that's racist, or she is the person who wrote this like racist fan fiction that has like racist depictions of Finn in it. So I'm just gonna step on by it, but I did read it this month. Then I read An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. This is the second book in a series. I say second because I think these are kind of like you can read them in either order. The first one is, oh my God, why can't I think about it? A Dowry of Blood. I did really enjoy A Dowry of Blood overall. An Education in Malice, I rated 3.5 stars. It is actually Rivals to Lovers, which I think that a lot of books that people are like, it's Rivals to Lovers. I'm like, what kind of rivals do you know about? This is actually Rivals. It's two students in a poetry class. They're in college or something, but they're pitting it against each other by the instructor because she wants them to grow to become better poets. So she's like pitting them against each other. They are actually rivals. And with that rivalry, comes a lot of complicated feelings because one of them, she's a lesbian, she knows she's a lesbian, but she struggles with those feelings a little bit. And the other one is, I believe she would be bisexual because she has relationships with both, but I don't know if that's ever stated outright. They're both like struggling because they have all this like passion towards each other and they're like, I hate her, but why do I want to like grab her so badly and stuff? So this is a story for like the yearners, the people who want to like experience that like dark, hungry yearning. Things that I didn't love was the pacing felt a bit off. It was like very slow, poetic writing, and then something would happen and it would be like, blah, 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 and then we would go back to like the slow moments. And that's kind of how it felt with the vampire plot was it would just pop up every once in a while and be like, oh my God, vampire. Okay. It was just very low. It felt mostly like we were just touching on that every once in a while. And then the spicy scene was too much for me. I am an asexual with a little bit of like sex aversion, so I'm here for the longing. I'm not really here for the actual like things are happening scenes. And this one was very intense. It was public, just letting you know, like it was a lot for me. I could see people really enjoying it if that's your thing, but for me, it was just too much. I skimmed it very quickly. Oh, it's almost my 10-year anniversary on Goodreads. I joined in April 2015 and it's April 2024. So after I read that one, I read The Long Game by Elena Armas. This is the author of The Spanish Love Deception, which I've never read. But I read The Long Game and this is about somebody who does like media, social media or something. I don't know. She does like PR maybe. I can't even remember for a Miami soccer team. She decapitates their mascot, her own mascot, and it's recorded and she becomes like a social media moment and her dad is the one who owns the team and runs it and he basically banishes her. He says you have to go deal with this charity project essentially that I'm running, and that would be a team of 7 and 8 year olds or something like that in the middle of the woods. They're being coached by this like really famous goalie. People don't know that he's there coaching them. It just happens to be like a kismet situation, you know? It wasn't intended. And so she meets him. He's trying to keep it under wraps that he's actually there. And they have to like work together to coach this little kids team. I rated it 4 stars. I thought it was really cute. I think I lowered it because I don't like when kids talk like adults. And I find that a lot with any books with kids in it. I did not like the smut like at all. Like at all. I can't really remember why exactly, but I didn't like it. And that was like all I put in the review was didn't like this smut at all. But I really want to read the next book in the series. I'm very excited for when that one comes out. And I do love soccer romance. So this was really cute. It was kind of long. It took me a while to read it because it felt dense and long, but I don't feel like there was ever a part of it where I was like, oh my God, can we get to the point already? So I really liked it. I thought it was super cute. If you like soccer and cute romances and you don't mind if they're a little bit long, definitely check this one out. Then I read A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. This is the first in the Hades Persephone saga. Oh my God, I saw the second one and the third one, I think, at the store recently, and they are like this big. I was like, if I wasn't going to continue this now, I'm definitely not. I didn't like this book very much. I rated it 3 stars, so I didn't like hate it, but I did not like it. I think I said, do you like a female main character who thinks she knows better than a god how to do things, even though she's like 22 and has been super sheltered and is always making bad decisions that prove that he'd be an idiot to trust her with any information, and smut where you can't tell what happened. Oh yeah, because the first spicy scene I was like, wow, she's not making a very big deal about her first like time ever having like a schmexy time. And then that's because it wasn't. They weren't actually like, there was no like actual penetration, but I just was like, it was written in a way that I had no idea what was going on. I did not like this book. I didn't like it. She was constantly getting on my nerves. Yeah, will not be continuing that series. Still rated at 3 stars, so that still got 1 star more than Bride did. Do with that what you will. 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Agustina Bazterrica. That's the author of Tender is the Flesh, which I have not read yet. This was my DNF for this month. I started it. This is a collection of short stories, and I just could not get into it. I read like 3 or 4 stories, and nothing like captured me. Nothing made me want to keep reading. There were things that like I was like, am I missing something? I feel like I'm either missing something or her writing style is just not for me. So I DNF'd it because I was like, this isn't hitting and I'm not going to make myself sit and read this. It's just going to make me not read anything. Okay, then I read Twisted Games, which is the second book in the Twisted series by Anna Huang. I rated this one 3 stars. This is kind of like Princess Diaries, but adult. It's about like a princess of a small fake European country who just wants to be like a normal girl, normal college student. Let me see if I can organize my thoughts. It's about her and her bodyguard. They've got like romantic tension, but he's like, this is a job. I can't mess this job up. I feel like this is either one of your favorite books in this series or it's your least favorite books. That's what I seem to see with people. It's like they either love Twisted Games or they hate Twisted Games. Yeah, I like this one more than Twisted Love. This one, I think it was just kind of slow and we cover a lot of time, and there's parts of it that I didn't like because scenes that happen in Twisted Love also happen in this book. I was reading that book and I was like, wait, I know that the next book is about the bodyguard romance. Is it also going to have this scene in it? Yes, it does have that scene in it, but it takes up all of like 2 pages. And it just felt so weird because I know what happened because I read the first book. I can't tell if this series is supposed to be standalone series or if it's like you gotta read everything to kind of get everything. Because if you didn't read the first book, but you picked up Twisted Games, you would be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, I feel like we skipped some steps here. Like, I feel like we skipped some crucial information. So that happened with a few situations in this book because of the overlap from the first and the second book. And then this book covers a lot of time, like years. So now I'm worried about going forward in the series. Like, is there going to be a lot more of that where something that happened in Twisted Games happens in like Twisted Hate is the next book? Luckily, I think that at least the character from Twisted Hate, she doesn't really play a big part in Twisted Games. Like Twisted Games is pretty removed from the rest of the people in the series because it's like a friend group, but most of this book takes place in this fake, we'll call it Genovia, if you will. It takes place in Genovia. So luckily there's not a whole lot of overlap, but there are situations. I don't know. Overall, the main story for this, I didn't hate it. I thought it was entertaining enough, but I worry about that with the overall series. And honestly, I don't like the Twisted series as much as I like her like Kings of Sin series, and I feel like again, you're either a Twisted fan or a Kings of fan. I don't know, I just like the Kings series more so far. I will keep going. I'm waiting for Twisted Hate from the library. It takes forever. After that, I went and read The Butcher of the Forest. This is a novella by Premi Mohammed. I rated it 4 stars. First off, like, look, the cover is beautiful. It's beautiful. So this is a novella about a woman who lives in this like kingdom that is kind of surrounded, or at least on one side there's this like magical forest, and anybody that goes into the forest like never comes back out except for her. And she went in at one point to save a child, and it's hinted at that that child, maybe did not overall survive, but she did bring the child back. The tyrant, who's the king of the land, his 2 children go into the forest, and so he's like, you have to bring my kids back or I'm going to murder your entire village. So she goes back into the forest to find these kids, and things ensue. So it was a very short, creepy, tense little read, and I can't decide if I wanted more from it by the end, like if I was like, oh, I want more of this world. I mean, I did, I like the magic system. It was such an interesting magic system. And the like creatures and characters she runs into in the forest, it's so interesting. But I can't decide if I wanted more to wrap the story up or if I liked the like open-ended ending. I don't know. Like, I honestly, right now, I can't quite remember how it ended, but I know that, like, at the end, we're left with questions and no answers to some of them. So I can't decide if I liked that. I think I took a star off because that's not my favorite way to end a story. Overall, I do recommend this one. I gave it 4 stars, and it's a novella, so it's not a big investment. Cubby, can you sit down? It would just be cool if you would just sit on my lap. But then I read Binding 13. The first book in the Boys of Tommen series is by Chloe Walsh. I don't know what Chloe put in this book. Like, I don't know if there's like drugs printed in the paper, but this thing, yeah, that was a ride. I loved it. I rated it 5 stars. I love Johnny. I love Shannon. I was like crying from how cute they were. It was so good. Okay, it's a young adult, but it's a really dark young adult. It's like a sports romance, and it is considered contemporary, but it's set in like 2005 in Ireland, and it's at a like a private school essentially, and it's about a girl who's new to the school and the star rugby player, and he's more than like the school's star rugby player. He plays in like the U17 or the U18, whatever it is. So he's like on track to go professional and be really good at it, but he injured himself. So he's like struggling with that and the fact that he's so afraid that if he doesn't just push through this injury, like he'll never get to live the dreams that he wants to be like a professional rugby player. He's also like falling for Shannon and he's like, I can't distract myself. I can't distract myself. And then at the same time, Shannon is just trying to survive. She's having like horrible domestic abuse as well as like terrible bullying. That's why she moved schools because she was getting just like horribly bullied and her brother was standing up for her, but it was getting him suspended and stuff. Like it is like sad. All right, it's so sad, but Johnny and Shannon are so cute and they're so lovely and they're so just like there's so much yearning. This is like 600 pages, okay? And it's not small section. The book is like this tall and it's pages and it's like 600 pages of like this. It's like so big. It's a huge tome, but oh my god, it was so worth it. I love it. I have special editions of the first two. I have of Binding and Keeping 13. I'm so excited to get them. I love this book. All I can say is like read it. Like I did not think it was going to be for me, but oh boy, I loved this book. I'm halfway through Keeping 13, which is the second one, but I've set it aside because I have like library books and stuff to read, and it's just, it is emotionally heavy. It is. It is very emotionally heavy, so take breaks if you need to. And then, is this really the last thing I read last month? Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It says I read 11 books. Where's the 11th book? Okay, I am missing a book. It's because I read it on the last day of the month. That must be it, maybe. That's so weird. Okay. The first list I have is cutting off the final book of the month. All right, so then it was the trans rights. It was, oh my god, I'm stuck. It was the trans rights readathon, like one of the last weeks of the month, and I really wanted to participate, but just because of the way that I had books that I like had to finish, I only got to read one book to participate, but I'm really glad that I did. I read Hell Followed with Us by Andrew Joseph White. This book was an experience. Okay, I rated it 5 stars. I've been wanting to read this book for so long. It was published in 2022 and I've been wanting to read it like since I've heard about it. And I was only just reminded about it because I think Carrie Cakes finally read it. And I was like, oh my God, yes, that book. It's been on my TBR for a year or two. So I finally got it on hold and I read it. And I kind of want to own it, but I also want to read Andrew's other books because this was so beautifully written. Oh my goodness. Especially as somebody who grew up going to like private Catholic school and going to church 3 times a month or 3 times a week and confession and all that stuff, like reading this like hit a lot of things that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that hits a little bit in the religious upbringing. Oh my gosh. So this is like kind of like a post-apocalyptic, like dystopian book about a like almost evangelical cult that releases this like insane virus onto the world. And the virus like twists people into biblical angel-esque things, but also just like nightmare creatures, and they call them the Graces. Like the cult calls them the Graces. I can't remember what the people that our main character runs into call them, but we follow Benji, who is a 16-year-old trans boy, and throughout the book we find out a little bit more about what the cult wanted with him, and you don't really find out why for a little bit. So he tries to run away for like various reasons. Just a heads up that there is a lot of like dead naming and like just transphobia and stuff in this, because the cult refuses to consider him as the boy that he is. They want him to be like who he used to be, or I'm not sure the exact wording for that kind of situation, but yeah. So he runs away and gets like rescued by a group of teens. They are from the local like LGBTQ plus center, but that's also where they're sheltering. There's other trans characters, there's like autistic characters, there's like just a lot of rep in this book, but also like this is a dystopian situation, all right? These kids, essentially, because they're all like young teens, maybe a little bit older, but they have their own motives, and there's just a lot of things happening, and there's a lot of body gore. I don't do well with body horror at all, like visual body horror, but I could handle it in this book, even though there were points where I was like, ooh, I don't like that. I don't like how that sounds. But this was such an interesting story, and like the themes, it was just so good. And I think if I remember correctly, I like cried at the end. Like, just like, oh my god. I wish I could talk to you more about it, because it hits things like right as everything's like coming to like the climax. There's things where I'm like, oh my god, this is like perfect. Like, it's hitting these notes and saying things. Like, it's so good, okay? If you can handle some of the like content warnings for it, I definitely recommend it. It was so good. 5 stars for that one. And then I ended the month by reading Bunny, which I'm wearing my bunny earrings. Hopefully they're working. They can be a little bit difficult. I ended the month by finally reading Bunny by Mona Awad. It took me a while to get my hands on it. I really wanted to buy it, but I wanted to buy a specific edition of it, and I couldn't find it. Every store was like sold out. And then I finally was just like, you know what, heck it. I'm just gonna go get it at the library, and I'm kind of glad I got it at the library because I rated it 3 stars. This felt overhyped for me, and I think that's a big problem with it. So if you're not familiar, Bunny is about a woman who is in a like literature program. I think it's like a post grad program. I'm not sure. It's her and 4 other women that she calls, or I think they call themselves the Bunnies. They are like very weird with each other. They call each other Bunny. Like, each of them is like, oh my god, Bunny, I love you, Bunny. Oh, Bunny. They all call each other Bunny, all 4 of them. And they're like constantly touching each other and just being weird. We have our main character who is like on the outs. So her program is the 4 of them and her. So it's a little bit awkward. She has a really good friend that she lives with. Eventually, the Bunnies invite her in to their smut salon. I can't remember, but she gets invited into their group, and it kind of like changes her super quickly, and there's like things happening there. Her friend is like really put off by her essentially becoming a bunny. It's really intense. I've seen people describe it as like Mean Girls on acid. I have no experience with hallucinogenics, so I can't say whether that's true or not, but it was definitely an experience, and I did not like the main character very much, but I think that's part of the point. Like, I think you're not supposed to really like her, and I think that you're not supposed to like her for reasons that like come up later in the book. Like, it's pointed out things about her, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, that makes her so annoying. So I think that it's like an unlikable protagonist intentionally, and it gets really strange, very strange. Yeah, it just gets strange, okay? Like, I would recommend reading this for the experience, But I did almost DNF it at a certain point because it goes from like, okay, okay, and then all of a sudden it's like, what is happening? What is going on? And I'm like, very, okay, all right. It was definitely an experience, all right. I do think it was overhyped for me, and I think that that did it a little bit dirty because I went in expecting like a life-changing experience instead of just an interesting contemporary like dark fairy tale, like dark horror fairy tale-esque thing, like very interesting. I do recommend it if it piques your interest. But yeah, I am glad I read it. I will not read it again, and I'm glad I didn't buy it. Although part of me wants to like do a reread and like annotate things, but life's too short to reread books that I wasn't a very big fan of right now. So that's what I ended the month on. My 11 books with a DNF and an average rating of 4 stars, which is pretty good for me because I did have some like new favorites in this month with like Boys of Tommen and Hell Followed with Us. Those are two books with authors I will definitely be continuing to continuing to look for and read more of. And then I did have some cute romances that I really enjoyed and some fairy tales that I did not enjoy. Yeah, that was my March. Have you read any of these books? Do you have an argument for Bunny being a life-changing experience for you? I would love to hear it. I feel like maybe I missed something again. I don't really think I did. I liked the ending. I'll give you that. I liked where we got, but getting there was a bit weird. Yeah, I'm interested to see how my April shakes out. I'm only a couple books into April and it's a mixed bag. So we will see how that goes. But let me know how your March went and if you read any of these books, what you thought about them, whether you think that the Persephone series gets better and I should pursue it. Are you a Twisted Love or are you a Twisted Games fan? Because I feel like that decides what side you're on in that series. I don't know. So let me know how your March went. How's your April going? And I'll see you guys next week for whatever comes out. Yeah, and I hope you're having better spring weather than we are here. It is gray and rainy. Thank you so much for hanging out today. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys later. All right. Bye.